I am Dr.Ashwin Dobariya welcomes you to Programming in C video series. In this video we will discuss the theory of looping concepts, and looping is very important part of the programs, and in this video we will discuss the overall concept of loop, means type of loops. Then out of three types we will discuss one loop, for loop, in detail in this video. Friend, generally we are using the for loop only in one way, but in this video we will see how we can use the for loop in 5 different way, how we can write the same for loop using 5 different way. So that we will discuss in this video. So let's we just first discuss the concept of loop. First of all, what is loop? So loop is nothing but it is a process which execute the common statement up to number of times. For example, let me take one practical example. Suppose in a fair, if one rider is there, and if you are counting the total number of round of this car, right, then generally we use the counting like if first time it is 1, then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, like that, right? Even what this car is doing over here, it performs the same operation again and again and again. So looping means the looping is a process which execute certain block of statement up to number of time. Up to number of time means you want to execute 5 times, 10 times, 50 times or 100 times depending on your requirement. So this is the definition of looping. Now in C language, actually major 2 category of the loops. One is entry control loops and exit control loops. Now first of all, let me discuss what is entry control loop. Entry control loop means in this loop, first one thing you have to remember over here, when there is a concept of loop, then one another concept we have to remember over here, that is the counter variable, because the counter variable which is associated with the loop and which will count the total number of iteration. So suppose the car first time it makes a round, then the counter say yes 1, then we will increment the counter 2, then 3, 4, 5. So counter variable, this is very important variable, you can say, associate with the every loop. So entry control loop means when the loop is execute, first it check the conditions, and if the condition becomes true, then and then it execute the loop statements. So at the time of entry of block, it check the conditions. So this type of loop is known as a entry control loop. So for loop also check the condition first, and if condition becomes true, then and then it will execute its block. Similarly, while loop is also do the same things. It check the condition first, and after that it execute the while loop blocks. But exit control loop means what? First it check the block of the statements or block of the loop without checking the condition. It execute the loop block first, and then it check the condition, and if condition becomes true, then it will repeat. Right? So exit control loop means it check the condition after execute its block, and one of the best example of exit control loop is do while loop. So now here in this video we will discuss detail about the for loop. In upcoming video I will upload this while loop and do while loop video separately, and we will also discuss the difference between all these loop. Now let me discuss first the concept of for loop. So for loop is again the iteration statement, or you can say loop statement, generally used in a programming. And the syntax of for loop is, for is a keywords, and in for we have to mention 3 part. Part number 1, first we have to initialize the counter. It means in a counting from which number you want to start count, right? Whether you want to start counting from 1, and suppose you want to count only total 5, then you can start like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 up to 5 we just stop it. Similarly, the thing is that counter variable you can initialize any number, but how many times you want to execute this loop, that is more important. So according to the initialization you have to mention the condition. Now suppose if I give an example over here, for example, suppose the counter we are starting, counter variable, for example I is equal to 1, and suppose we want to execute this loop up to 10 times, for example, then here we have to mention the condition I less than or equal to 10. So what does it mean? First time I is 1, then it check 1 is less than 10, yes, condition becomes true, then and then it will execute its block. And in for loop we can write any number of blocks as per our requirement. Now see friends, so first part is we have to initialize the counter variable, then up to the number of iteration we have to mention the conditions with the help of relational operators, and according to the starting value either counter is increment or decrement. Generally if you declare the counter variable lower value, then to reach up to the upper value we have to increment the counter. But suppose we can count in a reverse order also. Suppose in first iteration we can say 10, then second iteration we can say 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. It means our starting variable is initialization is 10. Then if you assign 10 value, then here the condition is changed. Then we have to give the conditions like if I is greater than or equal to 1. So we have to start from 10 and we have to reach up to 1. It means at that time we have to decrement the counter. So this is a very important point while you write the for loop. So in for loop syntax, actually we have to mention three things. Initialization of counter variable, from where you want to start the counting of iteration, then according to that we have to mention the conditions, and according to the conditions we have to mention increment or decrement. One very important point, all parts are separated with the help of semicolon, and do not mention the semicolon at the end of for loop. So take care all these points while you write the for loop. Another thing is in a curly brace you mention the number of statement that you want to repeat. And if we draw the flow chart of the for loop, then we can say start, then initialization. Initialization is the counter initialization. For example, I is equal to 1, and once you initialize the counter, then it will first check the condition, and if condition becomes true, then it execute the loop, and after that it perform the increment or decrement. Again it will check the conditions, again condition becomes true, and do this process will continue till the condition become false. Once condition become false, then control will transfer outside the for loop. So this is the overall concept of the we can say for loop. Now here one thing I want to explain, that how internally actually the for loop is execute. So this part is execute only first time. When the compiler control comes over here, then initialize only happen first time. So first time only the I becomes 1, for example. After that, if we check, if we want to execute this loop, for example 5 times, then how it will execute. So first time it initialize, then it will check, I is less than 5. Yes, if it is less than 5, then it will execute this statement. Once this statement is execute, again the control or it will increment by 1. So now I becomes 2. So now I become 2. Now 2 is less than, again it will check the condition. 2 is less than 5. If yes, again it will execute the same block. Again after the execution, it will increment by the counter like 3. Again it will check 3. So see, this part, initialization part, is only execute first time. After that only execute the test conditions and increment or decrement. So this is the overall concept of the execution of for loop. Let me see one practical example why we required the looping concept in a program. So it's very simple. Suppose I want to display a good morning message on screen. Then this is very simple program without a loop. We simply write down printf good morning. If I execute this program, then it display good morning. Suppose if I say I want to display 2 times, then again we just say copy and paste, and if we run this, it will display 2 times. But suppose if I say I want to display 5 times, then you can copy this statement 5 times. So up to this it's okay. 5 times, 10 times we can copy the same thing. Now see, here actually we want to execute the same statement 5 times, right? if I run this, it displays the good morning 5 times. But now if I say I want to display good morning 10 times, then again you can copy this statement 10 times. But if I say 1000 times, then it is very difficult to copy and paste. So it unnecessary we are repeat the same statement again and again. So instead of that, here the loop is very important. So here actually we want to execute only one statement up to number of time. So do not require to repeat the statement in a program. So what you can do, you can write that statement only one time, then declare one counter variable which can count the total number of iterations, and then write down the for loop. For first I will initialize, I want to start counting by 1, then how many times you want to execute, suppose 10 times, then you can mention I less than or equal to 10 semicolon, and here see we are starting our counting from 1 lower value and we want to reach up to upper value, then definitely we want to increment the counter. So I plus plus, so which will increment the counter. Then which statement you want to execute, so good morning, and here you stop the for loop. Now if I run this program, see using only a 2 statement we are able to display the good morning 10 times. Now if I just change 100 over here, what does it mean? This for loop will execute 100 times, 1 2 3 4 5 up to the 100, and it will display the good morning 100 times. See, this is the 100 time good morning display over here. Now suppose if you don't want to display the message and you want to display the value, then we know that the I counter is a numerical value, so we can display that numerical value also here. So counter variables we can also print like this /n %d because it is integer, and you can mention I. And suppose if I want to display first 10 number, then I start from 1 and 10. If I execute this, it display the 1 to 10. Suppose if I change 25 over here, then it will execute 25 times and display 1 to 25, right? And suppose here suppose our counting is reverse, we want to start our counting for 10 and 10 up to 1, then here I greater than or equal to 1, and here we are moving to the lower side, then we have to change the decrement over here, and if I run this program, it will display in the reverse order. So this is the concept of loop. Now this is only a simple use of a loop. Now we will see how we can write the same for loop in 5 different way, right? But basic funda is clear here. Whenever you write a for loop, 3 things should be there: initialization of counter, test the counter, and increment or decrement. These 3 must be there while you use the for loop. But you can change the place of these 3 things, right? We can change the place. It doesn't mean that we have to always initialize the counter in for loop. We can declare outside also, right? How we can do this? Let's see the various example over here. And this is the description part of the each and every part. First we have to initialize the counter, then we have to test the conditions, after that we have to increment and decrement. If condition becomes true, then it will execute the body of the loop. Now the first method to write the for loop. Now here it's very interesting example that if you want to display a multiplication table using for loop. Multiplication table means if I input 5 number, then it display these multiplication table. So this is the multiplication table, right? 5 multiplied by 1 is equal to 5. So how we can write this program? So whenever we think about the loop, then we have to always declare one counter variable. You can declare any variable, A, B, C, D, I, right? Any. And n means we'll ask the user to input any number. Of that number you want to display the counter multiplication table. So enter any number. After that, suppose if I input 5, then 5 will be stored into n. And now how we can draw this kind of, so we know that in a multiplication table we have to execute this loop 10 times, 1 2 3 4 up to 10 times. So that's why I have initialized the I is equal to 1, then I less than 10, and I plus plus. It means this loop will execute 10 times. Now which statement will execute? So here I want to display 3 value. One is input number, then second part is the number 1 2 3 4 5. So that 1 2 3 4 5 we can get from the counter variables, and this is the, you can say, multiplication answer. So multiplication answer we can get with the help of our input number with the counter variable, and that we have to multiply. So how we can write the printf? So here actually we want to display 3 value, so here we require 3 %d, 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 %d. Now here star we want to display common, so star will keep as it is over here. Similarly equal to we want to display common, so equal to will be same. Now here the format string is over, so this format string we have to mention in double quotation. Now first is the input number, so our input number stored in a n, so here we will display first variable n, which will display in place of first %d. Then the second is 1 2 3 4 5, that value we are received from the I, so second variable will mention as a I, that will display in the second %d. And next we want to display the answer, so n multiplied by I, so n multiplied by I, that is the answer, and it will display the last part, so it display like that. So this is the first method where we can write initialization counter, conditions, and increment, all 3 parts in the for statement. This is the first method, and we can the output of this program is this. And how we can draw the flow chart of the same? So flow chart, if we consider this program, then start, then these I and n we have to declare, so here declarations in a rectangle because it is the initialization statement. Then we will ask the user to input any number, so in a cross rectangle we will take one input, and after that the for loop, we know that I is equal to 1, so I is already initialized over here. Then I less than 10, it's a condition, so that will keep in a diamond symbol. And if this condition becomes true, then we want to perform these operations, so print n I and n multiply by I. After that, once it executes, then again it will go to the increment of counter, so it increment I is equal to I plus 1. Once it is increment, again it will check, yeah, the second time I is less than 10. If yes, again it true, it execute the same statement, again increment. So this process will continue till I become 11. Once it is 11, then it will false, then control transfer outside the for loop. So this is the execution of the first method. Now if you understood this example, then the second method is very easy. Now we have to just think about that, how we can write. This is the common method to use the for loop in a program. Now let's see this another method. The second method say that it's not compulsory to mention the initialization statement in for, that we can mention before for statement also. So what I have done in the same program, here at the time of declaration of I have initialized 1. In previous example, what we did, in previous example we have initialized, here only we have declared the I, and the initialization we have done in the for statement. But in second method, we can keep the initialization part optional in for statement, and in for loop, before the for loop we can initialize. So even not over here, you can initialize the variable or counter before for anywhere, right? So the second method say that you can keep the initialization part as a optional, but in a for statement only, but before that it is compulsory, right? Second part, conditions and increment, both we can write. So conditions and increment we can write without initialization in this. So this is the second method to, and this is also a complete success without any error. This program you can execute, and the output output will be a similar output. So this is the second method. Similarly, third method, how we can write the for loop in third different way. So in that case, again the same multiplication program, but here initialization of counter we will keep, but conditions we can keep as optionals over here. So see, again condition is required to stop the execution, right? So conditions is required. So how we can write? So condition we can write inside the for loop, and it will start from I is equal to 1, and it will check I is less than 10. Yes, if condition becomes true, it execute this, and then again it will increment by 1. I become 2, again 2 less than 10, yes, it display this, again I become 3, 4, 5, up to 11. Once it is 11, then this condition become false. Once it is 11 and false, then it will break, and break we already discussed that break is generally terminate the active loop. So here break we have mentioned in this for loop, so control will directly transfer outside the for loop. So this is the third method where we can make condition optional in the for statement, but inside the for compulsory we have to make the condition which can break your loop. Otherwise what happen, this loop will become infinite and your program execution will never stop, right? So this is another way we can write the condition inside the for loop. Fourth method, so fourth method, initialization we can do in for, condition we can do in this, but increment or decrement that we can write inside the for loop. So this is again the fourth methods we can write. So this is also one of the way to write the for loop. Again it will display the same outputs on the screen. So friends, this is the fourth methods we can write the for loop. And the fifth method, it's very interesting. In fifth method generally you never seen this kind of for loop. You can write a for loop but without any part. There is no initialization, no condition, no increment, but that you can mention. Initialization is always we have to mention that we will keep before the for loop, condition we will keep inside this for loop, and increment or decrement definitely we have to mention at the end of for loop. So this is also a valid for loop in a C language. You can write, you can do the practice in your laptop and desktop, right? So I hope friends this is very really interesting. We can write the for loop using different way. So I hope that you understood this concept friends and enjoy this video. And similarly in the next video we will see the another concepts of a loop, that is while loop, how we can write the while loop. Even friends, in this video description part I have also mentioned the link of other theory and practical videos for your reference. So please friends, like this video, share this video with your friends so they can also get the benefit. And if you have any feedback, please mention the feedbacks and your comments in the video comment part, so it will be helpful to me to improve. And if you want any special video, you can also write your comments in the video. So and for getting the upcoming videos updates, please subscribe this video channel. Thank you very much.